If you want to hold on to bitterness and resentment, then don't watch this video. Has anybody ever hurt you so badly that you could not see forgiveness in sight? You couldn't even stand the thought of forgiving them? We're going to share a few ideas that will help you find it in your heart to forgive and let go of bitterness and resentment. First, we're going to define what forgiveness is and what forgiveness is not. So Brittany, why don't you tell us what forgiveness is not?
What forgiveness is not, it is not allowing someone to continue victimizing or harming you. In other words, just because you forgive someone, it doesn't mean that you trust them. If someone abuses you, it doesn't mean that you have to trust them with your safety just because you forgave them. They've already proven that they cannot be trusted.
I have an example of this. So I have a friend that kept on borrowing money from me and my brother, and he kept promising, I'll pay you back next week. Okay, I'll pay you back next month. And time went by and he kept on borrowing more money and we kept lending him more money until over a couple of years, he accumulated $4,000 of debt between my brother and I. Now, we decided we would simply stop lending him money. And we eventually stopped asking him for money also. So we forgave him. We forgave him of his debt. But we also drew a boundary which said, we're not going to lend you any more money. But we forgave him. And we still remained friends for years and years after that. We just never brought up money again. So you can't forgive someone without having to trust them again. They have to earn your trust again. So that's what forgiveness is not. It's not necessarily trusting them. Now, Brittany, tell us, what is forgiveness then?
So what forgiveness is, it's letting go of anger and resentment towards someone who has hurt you. It's making a conscious decision to no longer hold a grudge against someone who has hurt you. It's not something that feels comfortable right away, but eventually you find healing and feel forgiveness. Why is this so hard for us to do?
The reason it's so hard for us to forgive is because we want the abuser to suffer for what they did. We want them to go through pain and suffering and punishment for what they did to me. They caused me pain and suffering, and they deserve the same thing. The problem with this is it turns you into a sinner. Now, viewers, before you get mad at me for saying that, please listen to me unpack this, and you can disagree or agree with me in the comments. So when you desire pain and suffering upon someone, is it actually healthy to want revenge? Is it healthy to seek vengeance, to seek pain and suffering upon someone else? Does that help you heal? No, you might think it does, but it actually does not help you. Does it help you mentally? Absolutely not. Jesus even says that if you wish pain upon someone else, it's the same as murder. Jesus says, you have heard that it was said to those of old, you shall not murder, and whoever murders will be in danger of the judgment. But I say to you that whoever is angry with his brother without a cause shall be in danger of the judgment. And whoever says to his brother, Raka, shall be in danger of the council. But whoever says, you fool, shall be in danger of hellfire. Now, it's true, it says if you're angry without a cause. But the point that Jesus is making here is that if you wish harm upon anyone else, even if they might deserve it, then you're in danger of hellfire. In other words, wishing harm upon someone, upon their feelings, upon their emotions, upon them physically, is the same as murder. And when you sin, you actually damage yourself. When you wish harm upon someone, you damage your own mind, you damage your own thought patterns, you damage your own conscience, and ultimately your own mental health. I know about a woman whose husband left her for another man, and that was sin. That was absolutely wrong. But this woman, she could not forgive her ex-husband for what he did. For her entire life, she held on to bitterness and resentment. And the way she coped with that is she became an alcoholic. And she damaged her liver so much that she eventually died of it. She literally killed herself by holding on to bitterness and resentment. We see that her lack of forgiveness actually robbed her of having a full, happy life. And that's why we need to learn to forgive. It actually brings us healing and happiness to forgive, to let things go.
Okay, so we're going to give you 5 of the most frequently asked questions regarding forgiveness. The last question is the most difficult, but it will guarantee your healing. Forgiveness is a major part of conflict resolution, which we deal with in another video. Click the link at the end of this video to learn about conflict resolution. Question number 1, why should I forgive someone who has hurt me? And the answer is, and this is speaking from experience, it brings peace, brings healing, It brings happiness. You don't have the constant burden of it hanging over your head. You're free from what that person did to you. I like this quote by Isabel Holland that says, "As long as you don't forgive, who and whatever it is will occupy rent-free space in your mind. By forgiving, you get rid of it." So this does not mean you approve of what that person did. You simply let it go. Forgiveness may even affect the other person in a good way. Not always, but it can.
In a relationship, what I'm about to share with you is actually going to make it easier to forgive. So, honey, do you remember that pillow that I got you? It says, "I love you more." And I actually have it. I'll share it with the audience. So it says to my girlfriend, when I say I love you more, I don't just mean I love you more than you love me. I mean, I love you more than the bad days ahead of us. I love you more than any fight we will ever have. I love you more than any obstacle that could ever try and come between us. I love you more than you will ever know. The point of that was to assure you that no matter what I do, even when I make mistakes, I'm trying to do the best that I can. So you know that I'm trying to be the best husband that I can be for you. And with that in mind, when I make a mistake, then you know that I wasn't trying to hurt you. In the back of your mind, you're thinking, well, you know what? He's not perfect because he's human, but he's trying to be. He's trying to be the perfect husband for me. And I trust your love for me too. When you make a mistake, I know in the back of my mind that you love me so much. You're trying to be the best wife. You're trying to be the perfect wife for me. And so it's easier to forgive.
I love that pillow.
So viewers, that's an attitude that we need to have in marriage, especially. We need to learn to show the other person that we're trying the best that we can. And we need to also have in the back of our minds that that person loves you so much, they're trying the best that they can. So that when we do run into mistakes, it's not that those mistakes happen on purpose. It's that they are imperfect human beings, and sometimes we make mistakes. But I know that sometimes we run into issues with people that are not sorry for what they did. That's even harder to forgive. But let me put this in perspective. So I know about this psychiatrist, and his patients come to him learning to forgive. They have trouble forgiving their abusers, for example. Some of these ladies come into his office who were abused, and they have a hard time forgiving their abuser, understandably. But he puts it into perspective. First, he asks them, who is more damaged, you or your abuser? And most of the time, right at the beginning, they say, well, me, I'm the victim. This abuser did this to me when I was a child over and over again, and so I am the damaged one. He's out there free. He never got punished. Nothing ever happened to him, and I am having a hard time forgiving this person. But then the psychiatrist asked them, okay, let's say you went to heaven, and God spoke to you, and God said, okay, I'm going to send you back to earth, and you can choose between these two choices. You can be yourself as you are now and continue your life, or you can be the abuser, and you are no longer the victim. You are out there abusing young children out there. You're the perpetrator now. You're not the victim. So you can go and be the less damaged person. And every single time, his patients always say, no, I could never be the abuser. That is absolutely horrible. I could never be the abuser. I would rather be me, as damaged as I am, and live my life. And then the psychiatrist asks them again, who do you think is more damaged now? And they come to realize that it is the abuser who is more damaged, more mentally damaged, because the fact is sin actually hurts the sinner more than it hurts the victim. In fact, it actually hurts the abuser 1,000 times more than it hurts the victim. And when we understand that, we begin to feel pity for the person. Imagine that an abuser does something terrible that morning. Do you think he sleeps well at night? Of course not. How could someone live with that? Something that you've done to someone else. Most people feel guilt for bad things that they've done. You probably know what it's like to feel guilt. Viewers, you know what it's like to feel guilt. I know what it's like to feel guilt. But then this psychiatrist, he brings out another point. Imagine the abuser does something that morning terrible, and he goes home to his family and he is able to sleep well at night. How damaged is someone who is able to sleep well at night after they perform these heinous crimes? You have to be extremely damaged, like sociopathic or psychopathic, in order to be able to sleep well at night after doing some of these things. So I hope this makes it easier to forgive someone who has done terrible things, understanding that they've destroyed their conscience, they've destroyed their mind, they've destroyed themselves mentally.
Question 3 is, does forgiveness mean I have to forget? So the answer is, in a way, yes. Henry Ward Beecher once said, I can forgive, but I cannot forget, is another way of saying I will not forgive. Think of a story where 2 children are on a beach. They're having a disagreement. They don't want to be around each other. They're fighting, bickering. And 5 or 10 minutes later, they're back to normal, like nothing ever happened. When Jesus says we are to become like little children, this is kind of a reminder of why he says that. It's like because it's so easy for them to forgive.
Another question is, what if I forgive, but I still feel angry? We have to keep in mind that our feelings don't follow our decisions overnight. It takes a daily decision to forgive. You don't have to feel it all the time in order to forgive someone. You can still feel the pain. You can still feel the anger. But if you decide every day, I'm going to forgive this person for what they did, then the feelings will eventually follow. You practice making that decision, the feelings of peace will eventually follow. There was one lady that went to a pastor for counseling because she had such a hard time forgiving someone. And she said, sometimes I feel hurt by that person when I relive what they did to me, but I really do want what's best for them. And the preacher replied, then you've forgiven them. Even though you might feel the pain and the anger sometimes, if you want what's best for them, then you can know that you have actually forgiven them.
Right.
Kay Kuzma said, when you focus on the future with no regrets, and when you can pray the same blessing on the person who offended you as you pray for yourself, you'll know you have forgotten. In other words, you have forgiven.
So our last question is, or double question rather, how long does it take to truly forgive, and how many times should I forgive? The answer to that is, remember, it's not a feeling, it's a decision. Sometimes it's a daily decision until you feel it. It can take days, it can take months or years. The greater it hurt, the longer it may take, but you will find healing. Remember where the Bible says, then Peter came to him and said, Lord, how often shall my brother sin against me, and I forgive him? Up to 7 times? Jesus said to him, I do not say to you up to 7 times, but up to 70 times 7. So it's not 490 times, because that's 70 times 7. So it's not like we reach that 491 times and then we're like, oh, we're cutting it off. Well, no more forgiveness. It means we forgive endlessly. When we do this, we become stronger and more Christ-like the more that we forgive. The more we practice it, the better we get. The easier it becomes. Practice makes perfect, right?
Forgiving someone continually also helps the other person. You see, this teaches the other person God's grace, and God's grace is his undeserved favor. He is constantly showering us with grace. He's constantly forgiving us. And when you forgive someone else constantly over and over again, then it teaches them God's grace. It gives them a chance to find salvation, to understand God a little bit more. So every time you forgive someone, you give them another opportunity to repent. And this may change their lives. Betty and John are sitting on the living room couch, and the air is heavy with the tension between them from a recent argument. John has just come back from a recent alcohol relapse. Betty looks worn and determined. John, I can't keep doing this. You keep hurting me over and over again. You keep going out there and drinking, and it's hurting me. I have to forgive you over and over and over again. John, looking ashamed, says, I'm so sorry, Betty. It's so difficult for me to overcome this, but please be patient with me. I love you so much. I'm really trying. I don't ever want to hurt you again, but I know it keeps hurting you over and over and over again. I'll do whatever it takes. I'll go to rehab, but please don't give up on me. This is the attitude of someone who is really trying, who wants to change. Over the next year, John gets help. Now, he's not perfect yet, but he's making significant improvement. And one day, Betty and John are in counseling together. Now, there are still challenges, but their relationship has begun to heal. Betty has forgiven John repeatedly, but not out of obligation, simply by making the choice over and over again. Betty says, smiling, I know it's not easy, John, but I see that you're improving. I see that you're really trying and that you truly love me. You're serious about your recovery, and it's making it easier to forgive every time. I'm proud of you, John. John takes her hand gratefully and says, I will keep fighting for us, Betty. I'm going to keep trying. I'm not going to give up. And I know that we will get through this together and I will fully recover. And I'm so thankful for your forgiveness. Friends, forgiveness is difficult, but it is possible. You can find peace, healing, happiness, and freedom from resentment and bitterness. So I hope you found this video helpful, and I'd like to hear from you. If you have any comments, maybe you disagree with me, maybe you agree with me, or maybe you have your own stories of forgiveness, please put those in the comments and subscribe for more relationship advice from the Bible. And now here's that video on conflict resolution that we promised.